Greetings, programs, and welcome to the latest episode of the Awesome Friday podcast. We are happy to be back after a 2-week break. My name is Matthew. With me, as per usual, is Simon. Please say hello, Simon.
Well, thank you for the introduction, and I am also happy to be back after what is actually 3 weeks for me. I think. First of all, thank you again to Rachel for taking my spot a couple of weeks ago and just doing a wonderful job with it as per usual. But I was on a cruise, eating food and drinking drink, and I know you don't drink anymore, but imagine someone who does drink, and that person has 2 children, and they use alcohol as a coping mechanism to get through the parenting of those 2 children. Then imagine you're then stuck on a thing that physically terrifies you for a week, and there is a 24/7 group of beautifully happy staff who keep asking if they can bring you alcohol and food. Now imagine how that goes.
Sounds pretty wonderful, really. I mean,
At every stage of this cruise, I thought this is perfect for Matt and Dan, your good lady wife. This is perfect for you because this is the whole point of a cruise is you spend 90% of it being as lazy as possible. Like it's your aim.
I honestly don't know how to take this now that you're explaining it.
Do you know what? Not like a whole year, but I mean, you work really, really hard. Like, how much free time do you have at the moment? 0.
Oh, none.
This is your free time. So this is like a week where you cannot leave this entertainment hub that has quiet spaces for you to read. So I read a lot. I read more than I've read in years. And in those quiet spaces, you have lovely people bringing you whatever you want. And there's a buffet with as much food as you want, a restaurant with as much food as you want. And occasionally you step off the boat and look at some jewelry stores in a different town. And you're told what town it is. You're like, oh, isn't this town lovely? In my case, it was 3 towns in Alaska, and they were actually all really lovely. They're like completely out of the busy downtown life that I usually live. And I went to Juneau and Skagway and Ketchikan.
Look, my only question about this whole experience for you is, at any point, did someone dangle grapes above your head that you then ate?
Do you know what?
And did you ever, in these moments, exclaim, "Delicious"?
Me on a cruise? It didn't get far off. The level of service. I went on Holland America. If you're going to book a cruise, I thoroughly recommend them. I went on the Zuurdam, and it wasn't far off. Grapes in the mouth. Like you're like in the morning, like I'm going to go because my kids are old enough to go swim now. So I'm going to sit by the pool and I'm going to read, and someone will come up and say, "Do you want a drink? Do you want some food?" The answer is yes to both of those. This one time I went to the bow to look at a glacier. Have you ever seen a glacier up close?
No, not in real life.
Like, you know, there's people that go into the wild and suddenly write lots of poetry. Like, it's because nature's like really stunningly amazing. And I'm at the bow of this ship in silence watching this glacier. I'm like, oh, whatever that movie is where Taylor Kirsch goes into the wild. Like, what's that film? What's that called again? Where he goes into the wild and dies in Alaska? Yeah, I want to do that. Because like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get why people just go, fuck this, I'm selling everything, I'm living in a hut. I know you're an island boy, so you already know this, but I've lived in cities for most of my life, and suddenly I want this again. And there were a 4-string quartet who played 2 or 3 things every day. There was a full theatre where you can watch dance shows. There was dueling pianists.
I mean, it sounds delightful.
And a casino, and honestly, it's hard to fault it. The only fault was that the ocean can just bite my ass, the entirety of my ass, the open ocean. I woke up one morning and it felt like everything was moving front and back. So I got up, I looked out, expecting to see these like waves, like painted waves, and it was completely flat. And the captain's like, yes, we're going through a spot of wind at the moment, so in about an hour or so we'll head back inland and we'll be fine. Like, I'm not cut out for ocean. Ocean. But
I
inland
still
stuff,
find this really
brilliant.
funny because you're British, and I'm pretty sure that every British
Mm.
person has to join the Navy. That's the reputation. So I just, maybe you just outstayed your welcome. I don't know, but it's weird to me
I
that
don't know.
you don't do well on a boat.
Well, I can't swim. So, first things first, I'm surrounded by death. And the second thing is, I get quite motion sick if I can't see. When I was young, I went on a ferry from Portsmouth to Sherbrooke that took about 7 hours and it was rocking all over the place. And I just threw up for the whole time. So, I've got trauma, emotional damage. But if anything, doing this cruise kind of made me realize, oh, this is fine. And I had some seasickness meds that worked really, really well. And when you combine them with red wine, sleep until 7 in the morning. It's like amazing. So I've come back, seriously, we've talked about this before. I've come back about 15, I'm about 15 pounds heavier than where I want to be right now. And that might be conservative, but it was quite the vacation.
Well, it sounds wonderful. I have not had a vacation, so I'm glad to hear of yours.
Sorry, but this would be perfect for you. And there was Wi-Fi. So
Oh, well, that's something.
there
Yeah.
was Wi-Fi, but not enough Wi-Fi to stream video. And do you know how great it is not being able to stream video?
No,
Like
I don't know.
it was just lovely. You could watch a movie in your room if you wanted to, but it was just really nice just to detach a bit. It's really good.
As a person who basically always has at least three to five movies downloaded onto each of his devices and owns multiple devices, I don't really understand what that would be like.
Mm. Well, I downloaded a bunch of movies and didn't watch any of them. We had some rentable movies on our TV, so I watched Aladdin again, which I'm going to talk about a bit tonight. The live action Disney Aladdin, and I watched The Lost City for the first time, which I thought was really fun. That may have been influenced by me being terrified of the boat and drunk, but I really enjoyed that movie. Um, but it's funny that when you start detaching and you have a book and you have really spectacular scenery that you find all the way up this coast that we live on, like the Pacific Northwest, all looks the same, and luckily that same is spectacular. I mean, it's just gorgeous. So there's a lot of reasons not to look at a phone or a screen. It's nice.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I haven't done anything like that. I've been coding, and more coding, and I am exhausted. So
Have you
that's
been
me.
hacking the planet?
No, no, just like two websites. It's fine.
Do you feel your power growing like
Oh
a
yeah, of course I do.
maniacal coder?
I'm about to go mad with the smallest amount of power possible. Yeah,
As you should do.
but that's quite boring. So
Okay.
anyway,
What should we talk about this week?
this is a podcast where we talk about movies and we talk about two new
Mm.
movies. So let's talk about two new movies, and we're going to talk about two new movies. One of which seems like it should be a surefire hit and is just the opposite of that. And we're going to talk about another
Spoiler.
one that is, whether you like it or not, is at least an interesting thing to have consumed. So let's start with
Yes.
the bigger of those two, which is Disney's new, and you can't see me doing the air quotes, but air quotes, live action Pinocchio remake that appeared on Disney Plus this week. I don't want to talk about this movie. I really don't, and I'm
So
upset that I'm upset that when
you
we were
blame
talking
me.
about what movies, I was like, maybe we should do Pinocchio, and then I was like, maybe we should do anything else, and you were like, no, let's do Pinocchio. Big, it'd be
So
great. It'd
let's
be so much.
let's
And then I just hate you now. I just hate you for it.
Matt's very upset with me. We've been friends for a long time, and so when he's upset, he just lets it all hang out. But it was your suggestion to watch Pinocchio. Now, I do take a
To be
sliver of
fair,
blame.
it was my suggestion to switch away from Pinocchio almost immediately as well, as soon
and
as I
and I
realized what I had done.
and I argued against it because it was a really interesting director who hasn't done everything I love, but always has a really distinct visual style, and we knew we'd have a lot to talk about. However, I realized the moment before I turned on Pinocchio, I was in fact talking about Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is out later this year, and not Robert Zemeckis' Disney Pinocchio, which apparently he'd made, and I had no idea about it. So I do take
Wait,
a
sorry.
slither of blame for this.
Just back up 1 second. Can you say his name again?
No, I can't. Guillermo del Toro. Did I say
Guillermo.
it right? Oh,
Guillermo.
come on, dude. I'm British. I'll just call him John. John Bull.
I mean, Guillermo is the Spanish form of William, so you can call him William.
So he'd be William Bull.
Yeah, William. Yeah.
Bull.
This is Robert Zemeckis directed, Tom Hanks
Yeah.
starring, should be a
Right, that's the
surefire hit. Like, I
So-
don't understand how this movie even happened. And just here, I'll recount the plot for you. Have you seen the 1940s Pinocchio? It's that movie again. Like,
except
except without
it doesn't work.
except without any of the whimsy or any of the timelessness or any of the like emotion required, or even just like the basic like
Oh my God.
color palette required to make a movie visually pleasing. And to be fair, I think this movie does have some pretty spectacular CGI at points. It's just a lot of it's really washed out, and I don't.
The whole thing. I mean, that's my main complaint. Like, I love Robert Zemeckis is genuinely one of my favorite directors. Like, which is why I find this thing baffling, because I'm not anti Disney live action remake. I will go to bat for the Aladdin remake, which has a really unique visual style. It has some excellent additions. It's directed with that Guy Ritchie energy really comes through. There's some interesting ideas in there, and so I'm astounded to watch a Robert Zemeckis movie, the same director as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and one of my favorite films of all time, Back to the Future, and to watch 2 hours of the blandest, like muddiest, color graded, boring like and it doesn't work, and it's the same story, and it's just all the life has been sucked out of it. And I'm a huge fan of 2D animation. Like, Lilo and Stitch is one of my favorite movies, regardless of any genre, any producer, and they're making a live action version of that as well, actually, which is going to be interesting. Lilo and Stitch is one of the last great 2D movies, animated movies, and I think Pinocchio is a great example of the downfall of muddy CG versus 2D hand-drawn animation, because the energy, it's crazy how much energy is lost and how much doesn't work, when fundamentally it's the same story, but it's graded. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, what's really interesting to me, and I think I mentioned this to you when I was text yelling at you about it last night, that
at midnight,
that like I actually think this movie. So this it's a Robert Zemeckis film, and Robert Zemeckis is actually fairly known at this point for doing those, like, they're fully animated but they're mocap animated films, like the Polar Express and Beowulf, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is a blend. Like, Tom Hanks is in this movie and he's a real person, but Pinocchio is a mocapped boy. And most of the, like, there's the Fox character, Honest John, I think his name is. I've already blanked it out. Is clear as mocapped, I believe, and voiced by Keegan-Michael Key. And I think this movie might have just worked better if it had just been animated.
Yeah.
Interestingly, like, I don't get why they decided to blend it. I'm already upset that they call this kind of movie live action. At least it does have some live action elements, unlike, say, the Lion King or Jungle Book remakes, which are just really well rendered CG. Like, they're not really live action at all. But I think it'd be weird. I think it might be work better. It might be, I feel like having real people in it means they were sort of had to be a little more contained. Like, they couldn't do anything really outlandish with the characters that are played by real people. And I don't know, it just doesn't work. None of it gels. Everyone has a different accent, which is not, I mean, sometimes that can work, but this doesn't, like, there's no consistency, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm at a loss of how to even talk about this movie, because like, the problem is that, like, I have a ton of stuff to say about it, but, like, it's just boring. Like, none of it's interesting. Like, it's not interesting, not even interestingly bad. It's just boring, and I don't get it. You know, I
I
don't get
so as I watch a lot of kids' movies, obviously, and I watch a lot of movies with my kids, and they're very discerning viewers. And to watch something that is meant to be a kids' movie, color graded, like for most of the movie, it's dull yellow, dull teal blue, and then shots of bright, like pure white light. And those are the three main colors in its color palette. The whole thing looks like it's just been bleached and gone through like 5 times too many layers of post processing. It's visually one of the least interesting things I've seen in years. And I texted you like within 20 minutes. I can't wait for filmmakers to rediscover color. And I don't just mean normal color, I mean technicolor,
it. Yeah.
bright colors. And straight after Pinocchio, I watched Back to the Future 3, which is, I don't know if it's my favorite Back to the Future, but it's just beautiful and wonderful. I know it's your favorite, isn't it? And there's a moment where the train arrives where Clara Clayton is leaving, having been dumped by Dr. Brown, spoiler, and she's wearing this shot like this beautiful indigo dress
Yeah, it's a
against
good
a
dress.
blue sky on a brown wooden train station with the metallic train comes in with the smoke, and it is just gorgeous. It is beautiful. It's so beautifully framed. That whole movie is a visual feast anyway, and it's so well edited. There's so much energy, and to go from Pinocchio to that, I just don't understand what the rationale is to make it so colorless and so bland, especially as you're meant to be making this movie for kids. Like it seems like a fundamental misfire to me, and
Yeah,
incredibly boring to watch.
and I don't know. I don't have anything against remakes, right? Like I know a lot of people talk about how there's too many remakes today, and honestly, there's been remakes forever. Like there's
Mm.
always been remakes, and I think what we're seeing is just that like there's a lot more movies now than there was even when we were young, right? There's more movies
Mm.
now than there were in the 90s. There were more movies in the 90s than there were in the 70s. There were more movies in the 70s than there were in the 50s. And we're just seeing
Mm.
a scale of these things, right? But to put something in context here, one of my all-time favorite movies is Ben-Hur, which is a film from the 1950s, as I'm sure you're aware, with Charlton Heston, directed by William Wyler. That movie's a remake.
Mm.
Like, remakes have been around. I have nothing against them. What I do sort of have something against, though, is remakes for. Well, I don't have something against them, but like, I just need the remake to bring something new. And
Mm.
this is just a like, Cruella is a great example of a
Yeah,
remake
that
that
is a
I
great
think
example. Yeah.
really works because they approach the whole the story from or they don't even remake a film, they just make a film in and around the original. And the
Mm.
same is true of Maleficent. Or
Oh, yeah, Maleficent's good.
you take a film like Pete's Dragon, which takes a movie that's bad and makes it good. Like there's
Mm.
lots of like I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority. I really didn't like original Pete's Dragon, but the new
I,
one is wonderful and legitimately one of my favorite films of that year. Um, but this just doesn't bring anything new to the table, uh, other than like a little more character backstory for Geppetto, which makes him sad. Like it makes some of the scenes a little more heartbreaking, especially in the way that they're played, because they give him like this backstory where he's a widower and had a son who also died. It's implied, and now Pinocchio is like his replacement son. And there's a
yeah,
scene
but
where Tom Hanks is half-heartedly delivering exposition to no one in particular in a room, and Jiminy Cricket is just there in the lower right of the screen, like shrugging, like and like not figuratively, like he literally looks at the screen and kind of shrugs at one point while Geppetto is like, I made all my clocks for my beloved Costanza. Like it's such a weird film full of capital C choices. It doesn't make any sense.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like
But
someone was involved with this movie who had no idea what it takes to make this movie for the audience they made it for. And like it's so many weird choices in there. The script and delivery of the script is really questionable throughout. There's one line reading that mispronounces a word, and as an English grammar teacher, let me tell you, I got my heckles up. But the
wait, which line reading was that?
so the first time the fox sees Pinocchio, and Pinocchio is trying to join the group of school kids going to school,
Yeah.
and they are standing in a line and walking down the street like a curved line, like a snake. And the wolf says, "Look at the children winding down the road." And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You read the script WINDING and said winding instead of winding down the road. Like
There's got
that's
to be a reason for that, though. There's got to be something
you know
because
what? I thought far too long about that. It's like, are they making his character try and sound clever, but he's actually going to mispronounce other words? Is he
or
going to
maybe
be misusing language? Do you know what I think it is? I think it's a misread, and nobody caught it. That's what I think, because there's no other indication that the character has that as a trait. And if that is a character trait, then they don't establish it as a character trait. It
I
just
mean
sounds like a
maybe
misread.
I mean that's I mean I don't I'm not just I mean that's certainly a very plausible explanation. I thought to myself when I heard that, like, is that how they said it in the original? I didn't rewatch the original, so I don't know. Or maybe like that character is supposed to be Italian, so maybe he's like mispronouncing English word,
Who
but like none
knows?
of that is established regardless. So
No,
like
I do. I'll openly admit that I'm more pedantic about that kind of thing than maybe most other people. But it still bothers me that if it's like exactly as you're saying, if it's a character thing, then it's not established at all.
although
And
to be fair, say Guillermo again.
William,
Terrible.
um, the many of the performances, because it was a mix of CGI and real people, Tom Hanks knows how to look at CGI. The fantastic theatre actress Cynthia Erivo, who played the Blue Fairy, has
Mm,
no idea how to pretend to look at CGI. Her her performance was a muted, like a theatrical performance, sure, and she's got a beautiful singing voice, but
she
she
really
wasn't
does. She's
looking.
actually
Her
super talented
eyeline,
as well.
yeah, she's amazing. She's incredible, which is why she's won a ton of awards. And her eyeline was off through the whole thing. And many of her dialogue scenes were just shot flat with just her talking off camera with no reaction shots. It was the weirdest thing. Like I would love to know what happened to the production of this, because it just doesn't feel like there were any like cohesive choices made in this thing. It feels like they were really scrambling. And
Yeah, I think the
that's
same is
that's
true
before.
of. I was gonna say I think the same is true of. I don't know what experience she has, but the young woman who played Fabiana, the like disabled
Mhm,
puppeteer
mhm,
girl from the puppet show. Her name is
mhm,
I think I'm going to mispronounce this, but Kyan Lamaya. And like every time she had to look at a CG character, it was slightly to
mhm.
one side. Like it was never
Yeah,
direct. And also they made
yeah.
this choice that like she has a puppet and the puppet has a different voice, and I don't get that choice. But anyway, it's like the puppet's a different character. Like they're trying to imply the puppet's alive almost, but like that's just not in the
To,
text or any of the scene.
maybe
I don't get it. Don't get
yeah,
it.
to give Pinocchio a direct, I don't know. And many, there's a very weird approach to accents in this whole thing. Like in the beginning, they establish everyone's in Italy, so everyone's Italiano, and then you have a random Cockney guy, and then you have a Brooklyn, just a boy from Brooklyn, but the most Brooklyn boy in the world. Like this is Dick Van Dyke being English, but a boy being Brooklyn, and it's just so strange. It's so
Yeah, I
strange.
don't I don't get it. And I'm not even sure what I mean. I just to be clear, I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he's generally always good, and I know lots of people have been praising his performance as Jiminy Cricket in this, but I didn't jive with it. I don't know what kind of accent he was trying to do, but it was unsuccessful. But there's also just like a
Mhm.
ton of people who are in this movie for like 30 seconds. Cynthia Erivo is one of them. She has one scene, and they got Lorraine Bracco to be like the seagull, and she's in like three scenes. And I
Is
don't,
that
I don't
Lorraine
know.
Bracco?
Just yeah, yeah, from The
Oh my
Sopranos
god!
and Goodfellas. Like
Right,
she's
as the
the
seagull.
seagull who talks about how much she likes eating garbage, and it's super weird, and I don't get it. And I feel like Tom Hanks actually knows what kind of movie he's in. He was sort of dialed to 11 in the way that sort of makes sense for the kind of movie they were trying to make. It's just that no one else seems to have been making that kind of movie. Like the
Yeah,
rest of it is sort of so muted. He's dialed to
yeah,
11, but everyone else is dialed to 9, so it
yeah,
doesn't really work.
yeah,
And
yeah.
saying they're all dialed to 9 is kind of generous, I think, unfortunately.
Oh,
But
very, very much so. And the costumes and the makeup and the hair was like weirdly
did you
amateurish, like the whole thing.
did you did you watch this with your kids though? I'm really curious what your
No,
kids
no,
thought of this,
they were
because I was talking with someone else last night who was also watching it, and they were like, I feel like if I then they said straight up, I feel like if I was 6 I would love this.
no.
And I was like, I
I
don't know. I
will.
don't know anymore if that would be the
I know
case.
what my
I
kids. I
dislike
know
this
what
so much.
this. My kids will be bored shitless with this because it is not interesting to look at. Like as a movie, as a visual medium of a story, it is incredibly bland to look at, and I don't think, based on what other things they watch and how they do react to vibrancy and excitement and color, I don't think they even make it through half of this
Hmm.
because it's just not interesting at all to look at, which is the weirdest thing. It really, really is. I don't know. It's it baffles me how Robert Zemeckis has made something so bland.
I mean, it's interesting because, like, I think he's made a bunch of movies that I love, and he's made a number of movies that I don't particularly care for. But this feels flatter than I think any of those. Like, even the ones I didn't like before, at least feels like he was going for something, like
Yeah,
really
yeah,
swinging for the fences for something.
yeah. Totally, he has a style.
and
Yeah,
and
definitely.
this did not. And I think, to be fair, this is, I think, I never saw Welcome to Marwen because it looked terrible, and I didn't see The
Oh yeah,
Witches
yeah.
because why would you? In the same way, like, why, like, again, I'm open to remakes, but I don't, I just didn't see anyway. It seems like he's made 3 not great movies in a row, uh,
Mm-hmm,
and I don't sort of get that, right? Like, the
mm-hmm.
same guy who made all 3 Back to the Futures, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Death Becomes Her. Even I even like
That's it.
Contact, Castaway, What Lies Beneath. Like, these are all great. And then,
Yeah.
like, ever since about 2004, which is when the Polar Express came out, it's been much more uneven for me.
Mm-hmm,
But even those ones, like the Polar Express and Beowulf in particular, feel like he's going for something. Feel like he's
mm-hmm,
really striving to do something.
mm-hmm,
And this doesn't really feel like that. It feels
mm-hmm.
like like a very, for lack of a better way to say it, because I don't think this is fair, it feels like very sort of workman like, like he just showed up and made a movie and
Oh,
left.
totally.
It doesn't feel like it has any spark, and it doesn't feel like it
It's
has anyone
got
excited to make it. Like it's
it's got second unit all over it for me.
yeah.
Like it's like is this one of these Marvel action situations where they've actually mapped out everything before the director even sets foot in the building, and the director just takes care of Tom Hanks and the other human performances, and everything else is already done. Like I don't know. And was Pinocchio as a rendered quote unquote live model ever not creepy? Just a little bit creepy for you? Because throughout this movie, I just found just there's something about his eyes, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was
You mean
reminding me
his
of.
his cold dead eyes?
But I don't get this from the animated one. Like I watched it, I was like, this is reminding me of like a straight up horror movie. I can't work out what's there's something about the frozen eyes and the smile and the fact that it's obviously the possessed doll of his dead child. Like there wouldn't be much to make this a horror movie, is what I'm saying. It really wouldn't be.
Well, maybe that would be more interesting. I mean, they just made a Winnie the Pooh horror movie, so that's maybe we could do that too. I
Yeah,
guess
maybe if they
what
did make a horror, they could have Chris Pine in it just
Oh,
to.
don't even. But
what's interesting too to me is that, like, and I don't know if you got this watching this, but and I think we should just wrap it up because for a movie I said wasn't interestingly bad, we've talked for 25 minutes
That's
now.
yeah. You see, that's why it was a good choice. Thank you.
Yeah. So the whole story of Pinocchio is that he's a wooden boy and he wishes to be real, and the blue fairy tells him that he needs to be brave and truthful and selfless so he can be a real boy. And this movie sort of robs Pinocchio of 99% of his agency, which means that he doesn't ever actually truly get to be one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's the point of the movie. They've robbed the movie of its point. Like every time and maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but my memory of the original is that in the situations where he needed to be one of those things, he is the impetus to change for those scenes, right? He has the agency. He's the one who like makes the choice to be brave in the face of something, or truthful or selfless or whatever. In this one, every time it's someone else taking the action, and it sort of robs the movie of any reason to be. Like it doesn't, like it robs the story of whatever power it may have had. And it's just such a big swing and a miss. And I kind of wonder if this one was meant for theaters and someone watched it and went, oh no, maybe not. Maybe we just quietly, or dump it on Disney Plus Day when we're dumping a bunch of other stuff to Disney Plus, so it kind of gets lost in the wash. Like I don't know. I have no inside baseball on this. That's just my. I think.
Do you think it was meant to be for 3D, and the reason it's so washed out is that they've done a quick 2D transfer of it?
No, because
that might
usually it's the other way around, right? Usually they make a movie in 2D and then convert it.
I don't know.
I feel like if they had shot this movie in 3D, we would know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if
everything would be reaching to the screen.
And I also feel like if they had invested in the expense of shooting it in 3D, especially, it still would have gone to theaters.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't
know. Yeah. Can we briefly talk about the original Pinocchio has a weird kind of pacing anyway. It's one of these slightly older Disney movies that doesn't really have a 3 acts. It has kind of 4, and the last one's very, very short.
It's a series of vignettes, basically.
Yeah. In the original, Geppetto gets swallowed by a whale, right? They go into a whale. I'm not misremembering that. Because in this movie, it's like a kaiju, maybe? It's not a whale. For some reason, they made it a completely unconvincing, out of nowhere. It's like, oh, by the way, we have a sea beast, and he sits on top of the ocean, and he's got tentacles, and
a super long snout for some reason.
Yeah. Again, another choice. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't.
Anyway, yeah, we don't like it. How many stars for you?
One for me.
Yep, 1 from me as well. Very disappointed.
Yeah.
Not good.
Well, it's funny because usually I think most people are aware that when I'm talking about a film, even when I don't like, I try to very much go out of my way to be like, but if you like this or that, then there's something for you here. And I just honestly couldn't come up with anything for this. I don't.
No, this is not a thing. If you're on Disney Plus and you see it with your kids, you think, oh, I might like to watch a live action Disney. That would be nice. Just scroll down and watch The Nutcracker and the Four Realms instead, because it's got everything this movie hasn't got. It's a wonderful movie, and it's really exciting and really colorful, and it's a great family movie.
Or just watch original Pinocchio. Like, it's still a great movie.
Yeah, that's true too.
There's lots of options anyway, and
yeah.
Anyway, so that's Pinocchio. Let's move on and never talk about it again.
Okay.
So we're going to move on to a film that I actually saw for the first time over a year ago. It debuted as part of the Midnight Madness run of TIFF 2021, and I later saw it as part of the 2021 Fantastic Fest, which I attended remotely. And this is the Senegalese action horror thriller fantasy kind of movie, which debuted on Shudder this weekend, called Saloum. And it is, if nothing else, it is a far more interesting movie. So let's get into that.
Completely.
Saloum is it's an action movie. It concerns a group of 3 mercenaries called Bengui's Hyenas, and they set in 2003, they're escaping from the Guinea-Bissau coup d'etat with a drug dealer, and they take up refuge in Saloum in this sort of resort. And it turns out that there's monsters in the resort, both human and supernatural. And there's ties to the past and so on and so forth. And I actually like this movie quite a lot. I don't think, my guess here is that Simon didn't connect with it very much, based on the fact that I know he didn't connect with it very much. But this
Wow, it's
is,
like you have some kind of insight.
I know, right? But this is a movie that has clearly wears a lot of influences on its sleeve. There's a lot of North American action stuff in it. There's a lot of like supernatural horror elements in it. It does have a slight, especially in the third act when everything's really ramping up, they clearly have a small budgetary restriction, which can be a little bit frustrating. But overall, this is exactly the kind of movie that, like, it's exactly the kind of thing that, like, Midnight Madness part of festivals was made for, right? Like, this is the kind of thing you want to watch late at night with a crowd who's into this kind of movie, or just to stumble upon in the middle of the night on TV, which is a thing that used to happen. It's it may or may not work for you, but it is at least worth checking out because the parts of it that are good are great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know you didn't like it as much as I did. What do you think about it, Simon?
So it's not like I don't think it's accurate to say I didn't like it. The problem, I really conflicted here because the first half of this movie I really, really like. Without, this isn't really a spoiler. If you've seen the trailer, it makes it clear. If you've seen From Dusk Till Dawn, this has the
Yeah.
same kind of structure. Exactly the same. You've got a first half tense crime drama, and then you've got a massive swerve into supernatural horror. And in this first half, I absolutely loved how you've got this group of three mercenaries who were kind of locally famous as kind of doing the right thing, and they've kidnapped this drug dealer because he's worth a ton to the cartel alive, but their plane breaks down, so they find a knife cut in their plane, and the fuel leaks out, so they have to land in this kind of out of the way town that one of the guys has passing knowledge of. At least that's the setup. And we meet people in this town, and straight away, I love it when films surprise you and go against your expectations, because straight away they kind of pretend that there's someone else, and there's someone there that knows more about them than anyone else. And the way that that character communicates, the conversation they have, is amazing. That's probably my favorite scene of the movie, where a character called Awa, played by Eveline Ely. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. An actress who I will definitely be looking at the rest of her filmography because I thought she was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the two leads, her and Yang Gale, who I've never heard of. Yang Gale, all I could think of was like LaField Stankeith, like that kind of intensity.
Lakeith Stanfield.
What did I say?
LaField Stankeith.
I'm so tired. Sorry, I've been out all day in the sunshine and my brain is pickled. Anyway, thank you for that correction. And Guillermo del Toro. Yeah, I'm not having a good day with pronunciation or memory. He's got, I don't know who this guy is. I Wikipedia them. They've both done a lot of stuff, but brilliant. Clooney in From Dusk Till Dawn has that mixture of charming and deadly. And
Mm-hmm.
Yangel's Chaka in this has exactly the same thing. And he has a conversation with Awa, who is a deaf mute, and they talk in sign language underneath everyone, where they talk about something that nobody else knows what's going on at a dinner table. And it is, I don't know if you like that scene too, but I mean,
it is
that blew me away.
The whole
So
scene,
good.
the whole dinner scene where they've come to this resort and they're pretending to be someone they're not, and they're having Chaka, young Gael is having a conversation with the sort of owner of the resort in French, and he's having another conversation with Awa in sign language, and that whole scene is actually probably, I don't want to say it's the best scene in the movie, but it's kind of the best scene in the movie, at least in terms of
It is.
like
It really is.
an acting showcase.
It really
Um,
is.
and like
And
even the other two guys, like Roger Sala, who's one of
yeah,
the
they're
other
good.
two mercenaries, who also speaks the sign language and who has probably the most forward personality of the three. Like he's the loud one with his Versace shoes and he has a mohawk and also a blonde beard, and he's kind of wonderful just to look at. Um,
Yeah.
and he has like they all have this really really interesting energy, and even
Yeah.
the owner of the resort, who's played by Bruno Henry, his name is Omar, is like has a really interesting persona that feels really fake, and at the beginning you sort of think it's fake because he's a hotel owner, and then you realize it's fake later on, you realize it's fake because of
Yeah.
connections to
For
blah blah
reasons.
blah. And
And
like,
that. Yeah.
and it's so well, that whole scene is so well performed.
With the whole first half, how that all plays out with the growing tensions and the growing relationships, and the more we learned about the mercenaries, I really loved how they didn't make Roger Sala the crazy one and Mentabar like the mystical one. They all had levels, and they were all like they weren't stereotypical mercenary characters. And that first half of the movie where things are unraveling a little bit and they all pair off to do camp duties because he doesn't charge for the camp, you just have to pitch in. And as things come together, and then there's a massive revelation that works really really well
Hmm.
about the truth of why they're actually there up to that point, which I'm not going to spoil because it's a great great moment. And the result of that revelation causes a massive swerve, and everything past that swerve I disliked more and more and more until it got to an ending. And by the ending, I just didn't know what it even wanted to say anymore. I'm actually really disappointed because up until that point, it was that wonderful moment of watching a foreign movie. I've never seen a Senegalese cinema in French with sign language. Like I've never
Hmm.
seen anything, and they're clearly shooting digitally. So, I mean, the technical aspects aside, they they are doing a lot with the limited money they had. You could really tell that. And I was so on board with this until it decided it wanted to be a completely different film. And then just the rest of it is like a different crew, different director, different
Yeah,
style, and it lost me completely.
I think From Dusk Till Dawn is a sort of great good comparison because it also takes a really hard left turn into a supernatural place in the third act. And
Mm-hmm.
I to be perfectly fair, I think I liked this more the first time I saw it a year ago, and it hasn't
Mm-hmm.
changed. But I did still like it this time. But some of the I sort of got lost in some of the action this time.
Okay.
Um, and I think that has a lot to do with something I've talked about a lot, is that a lot of the action is shot really shaky and cuts really fast. And because all of the quote supernatural bad guys are like they're covered in swarms of like insects and such, and they all look exactly the same, and it's really hard to
Yeah,
maintain the
it
geography the
doesn't
way
look good.
they
Yeah.
shot it. And it's not fair because it's clearly a budgetary limitation. Um, and it's still like parts of it are still fun. I just had a harder time like following it this time. Uh, but I don't know. I think all of this for me. This is all fairly nitpicky. I think the parts of this movie that work really, really work, and it's definitely worth everybody's time to at least check out. And if you don't have Shutter, and again, Shutter is not a sponsor. We just really like them.
Mm-hmm.
If you have Shutter, like just check it out. It's totally worth checking out. It's totally worth, even if you end up not really liking it. It's definitely worth checking out just to see something from Senegal, just to see something from made with clear budgetary limitations, yes, but also clear love and sort of passion behind it in a way that our first movie this episode just did not. you
Yeah,
know
totally,
um
totally. Even if you, I'm not advocating turning off a movie, but there's a clear change in this film, and it's okay to know that, and it's okay to not like like the change if you share my opinion, but it's definitely worth watching up until that point, because the when you've got no budget, the acting and the script and the camera work really has to be on point. And all three of those up to that point, I was so impressed with.
Yeah.
And
I mean, the opening scene
we
of the
will,
movie, which is a long take
yeah,
through a battlefield, is spectacular.
yeah,
And the music throughout is also spectacular. And yeah, I mean, it does take a bit of a turn, and it may or may not work for you. But I'm still here to say that you should definitely check it out.
yes, I agree. And
Yeah.
I would definitely like to check out other movies by these actors, see what they've done, and
Yeah.
maybe even the director. Like there was a lot of style in the first half that went out the window in the second half when the cameras suddenly decided to get glued to like within 3 inches of every body. Which, yeah, you're right. They didn't have the money to show the whole thing, did they? So it had to be like glimpses and glances and frenetic shots. But then they start like talking to other, and the camera's flipping and stuff, and it's like all that style and um careful attention of the first like crime drama part went out the window in the second part. But I would be interested to see what else the director has done, or what else is in that kind of um that community, that cinema.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does have 4 things in post production,
Yeah,
and he has done what looks to be a number of TV credits in producing.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
so
So how many
anyway,
stars for you for Saloum?
that's 3. It's perfectly acceptable 3 out of 5 for me.
I really wish it were for me as well. I'm so disappointed by the second half. I'm really by the ending, which I thought was terrible. It's a 2 star for me, and that's a shame because up until the Switch it was a 4, and I can't even balance it out to a 3. It's a 2 for me.
If we were giving half-star ratings, do you think it would be a 2.5?
No,
Like it'd be a high 2 or just a 2?
just a 2.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
A 2's a 2. A 2's a 2. I don't think about high and low 2's.
Yeah.
That's cheating. That's cheating.
It is cheating. That's why it's a perfectly acceptable 3 for me.
Yeah. Yeah. But
So
that scans because you liked it. It worked a bit better for you as a whole, didn't it? And the second half really took the wind out of my sails, so that makes sense.
I mean, to be fair to you, I think part of when I first saw it last year, it was in the middle of Fantastic Fest. I was neck deep in genre fare, and even today, like I watched Pinocchio last night, and I rewatched Saloum this morning, and like comparing it to other things, I think kind of helps it. Because compared to a lot of the genre stuff I was watching last year, it is refreshingly different. And compared to something like Pinocchio, which doesn't have any spark at all, it feels like a masterwork. So, or at least a work of passion, right? Like it's a work that somebody gives a shit about. So
yeah, definitely. No, that's a good point.
Yeah, I like it.
So yeah, you should check it out. You should definitely check it out.
Yes, you should. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap up there because that's pretty much all we had to say. So
what are we talking about next week?
Oh, I have no idea. We're waiting to find out that information.
Have you started watching Rings of Power yet? I'm curious, as a Game of Thrones aficionado, how the various dragons and Lord of the Rings series are working out for you.
So, without getting into too much detail, because we're trying to wrap the show up, we are watching. We are watching both House of the Dragon, which is the Game of Thrones prequel, and we are watching Rings of Power as well, which is the Lord of the Rings prequel show. And I like them both for very different reasons, but I like them both. They're both good. And let me just, since we're now talking about that, let me just go on the record and say that if you have a problem with people of color being in these shows, that's a problem with you and not the show.
Well said.
Yeah.
Good.
Anyway.
Well, thank you for listening. Here are the messages.
Thank you for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. We know there's a few more of you than there were before, and we appreciate everyone who's here. If you would like to support us, please consider giving us a 5-star review on your podcasting platform of choice, or if you prefer to support more directly, we do have a Patreon, which will be linked in the show notes. Also, be sure to check out awesomefriday.ca for all of our other content, and follow us on the Twitters at awesomefridayca. And yeah, feel free to reach out on any of those platforms. We would love to hear from you. We record this and produce it here in Vancouver, BC on the unceded lands of Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. And thank you so much for joining us on this awesome Friday.
Bye.